Well, hello. Welcome back to Orchid Bloom's podcast. Welcome back, bloomers. I am your host, Orchid Brown with Orchid Bloom's podcast. You can find me on TikTok, X, and Blue Skies at Orchid Eye Brown. I know that the previous 2 or 4 podcast episodes have been quite heavy, but it is something that I really needed to touch on for this subject topic. Now that I have released myself from these heavy topics, I'm going to go into this week's podcast episode with something a little bit lighter. So the topic that we will be covering will be when trauma shapes money. We will be discussing poverty mindset and poverty trauma. This is something I have been reflecting on during this year because I wanted to know what I may be doing or thinking that could be putting me in a place of lack. I pride myself on making sound decisions, but I am making missteps along the way, and I am not recognizing it, which is a problem for me. So it must be mindset or trauma. So let's learn about this together. Let's start from the root. Poverty mindset is a pervasive set of beliefs and behaviors stem from a lack of resources characterized by a constant fear of scarcity, hoarding, and a reluctance to spend money or take risks. Mindset is deeply connected to trauma, particularly poverty trauma, which is the psychological stress and suffering caused by the chronic financial insecurity, food insecurity, inadequate housing, and lack of resources inherited in poverty. Experiencing such chronic stressors can induce a fight or flight survival mode, leading to conditions like PTSD or a pervasive sense of instability that can be passed down through generations. Let's start with scarcity beliefs, a core belief that there will never be enough money, food, or resources, leading to a constant worry about running out. Hoarding tendency, a compulsion to hold on to items even if there are no longer of value or needed, out of fear that they will be lost or taken away. Risk evasion, a strong fear of any risk, particularly financially, because of any loss can feel catastrophic and threaten immediate survival. Survival versus thriving. This is a topic that I've been having with a few people in my life because we all get stuck in survival mode. And we forget to shift out of that and go into thriving mode. So for survival versus thriving, it is a focus on just getting by and surviving rather than long-term growth or thriving. I can confirm that I have struggled with all of these throughout my time on this earth. And I think I only started really working on these 4 areas in high school. In high school, I started my first job. So, of course, when you start your first job and you start making money for the first time, it's not something that your parents gives you to go out. It's something that you have actually earned. You've worked for it. I recall feeling a sense of scarcity, which all stemmed back to childhood because I grew up in a household and surrounded by family who were always complaining about not having enough money or food or resources. They were always constantly worrying and stressed that things are just going to run out. They won't be able to find what they're looking for. So when you grow up in that atmosphere, you tend to start to feel the exact same way because it's a learned behavior. It's what you've experienced, is what you have seen. You have heard your parents' conversations. You've heard your uncles, your aunts, your grandparents. You've even heard neighbors when you go and you visit a friend. All of this is an experience that you carry with you for a very long time. And after going through that motion of scarcity during high school, I found that a way that I was able to assist in that feeling of worry that the money was going to run out was by opening an investment account for the first time. Like I got myself a bank account for the first time. And then I proceeded to opening an investment account on top of the bank account because now the money is consistently coming in. And I asked them to put in maybe $25 out of my paycheck into this investment account where it would build interest. And thankfully, my mother is the one that brought that idea to me. And she brought me to the bank. She helped me open a bank account because, again, I'm under 18. And then once I got some consistent money, that's when she says, okay, we're going to go back to the bank and you're going to open a GIC and you're going to put that in and you're going to save the money, especially if you are going to college, you're going to need to pay for your college. So she kind of helped me out in that aspect. And so it kind of calmed me a little bit because this is something that I don't recall my parents or my aunts, my uncles, my grandparents, I don't recall them doing this when I was growing up. It was almost as though the money came in and the money just left. There was no investing. There wasn't really any savings. Sometimes you'll see your aunt, stick some money in her bra, but I mean, it never really lasts. Or they stick it in their mattress, but by the next week you see them pulling it out and having to use it because they need it. And so this was the first time I was able to actually do something different, to pull away from that trauma that I learned. Mind you, I don't think that they had, these investments such as GIC back in the day when I was like 6 years old. So I don't believe that a lot of people were educated on certain services that were offered through banking. Or it wasn't widely spread. It was just you have an account, you put your money in that account. And they might have had mutual funds back then and things like that. But when people aren't educated on how to invest their money, most people won't do it. Hoarding tendency is something that I also struggled with. And I remembered, thinking, and which is funny that I'm saying that I struggled with it because I technically didn't. My issue at the time was that I tend to purchase things and I hold on to it. And I still have that tendency where I'll buy something, but I won't use it until maybe 6 or a year later. I don't know why I do that. At the moment, when I purchased it, I know I would use it, but I find myself only really using it months later. After college, I got my first apartment. And with that first apartment, rather than going out and buying a ton of new things, because again, you're starting a new job, you're going to be paying rent now, you're going to be paying for a lot of things that you weren't paying for before. And I had to be realistic. I had to be smart. And this is what I meant by sound decisions. I make sound decisions. So why? Anyways, let's go back to the topic. So I would go to like thrift stores because, my mother would take me to thrift stores to teach me that, hey, as much as this is secondhand, look at the quality. This is what the quality looks like. So if this is like $50, you would have had to buy this brand new somewhere else for like $200. And she would take me to these stores and show me, certain items and what the prices are when they're brand new compared to what thrifting was. And I was like, oh, okay. So she says, at this point, learn how to see quality, not quantity, but look at the quality. You're not going to go into a thrift store and purchase something that looks like shit. If you see a steal, pick it up. So that's what I did. So I purchased a few things that were in great shape, quality. And I purchased those, and that's what I put in my apartment. And my apartment looked amazing for my first apartment. I was so proud of myself. And my mother was very helpful in doing that. And mostly the reason why she did that is because she had to unlearn certain tendencies herself, and then she was passing that down to me. Now in my life, I find that I'm getting rid of a lot of stuff. It's not that I was hoarding, it was just that the items no longer have value. When you grow up and you change, you have to change your atmosphere. Your life needs to reflect the growth that you have put into yourself. And so some of the things that I liked before, I no longer like now. And I had to really get all of that stuff out of my space and start bringing in something new. And I definitely changed my mind or my way of thinking, and how I shop nowadays it's different. I'm not looking for the most bulkiest stuff or the heaviest thing because it looks like quality. Now I'm just looking for things that are nice and light, minimalistic, has, a chic uniqueness to it, but it's not so overpowering and so filling up of the space. I like space. So again, my tastes have changed. Because my taste have changed, I have to clear out a lot of stuff. I really didn't know I had that many things. I had to really think about it. I had this items for years and I never used it. So I'm gonna have to let it go. I even force myself to get rid of things by wearing it once and then let it go. That way my conscience is clear. Because I don't want to have to feel bad, like I bought this and I never wore it and I feel horrible about it. So I'm just going to wear it and then come home, wash it, because it's still great condition. And that's something that I learned about myself, is that I take very good care of my things. So technically I don't need to buy things expensive or brand new. If I get something that's secondhand and it's in great quality, I promise you it will still be in great quality years later when I decide to let it go. Now let's move into how trauma connects to a poverty mindset. The first on the list is chronic stress. Living in poverty exposes individuals to daily chronic stressors like financial uncertainty, food insecurity, and lack of adequate housing, creating a constant state of stress. Number 2, poverty trauma. The constant struggle to meet basic needs can be traumatic in itself, leading to what is known as a poverty or money trauma. Third is survival mode activation. So a chronic stress and trauma can activate a persistent fight or flight response, influencing thought process and behaviors to prioritize immediate survival over future opportunities. Number 4, PTSD and anxiety. This constant exposure to distressing situations increases the risk of developing anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Number 5, intergenerational impact. The effects of poverty trauma can be passed down, influencing the mindset and opportunities of future generations and contribute to intergenerational poverty. Number 6, and the last one, reinforcing the cycle. The fear of trauma associated with poverty can lead to behaviors like avoiding opportunities or hoarding resources, which then make it harder to escape poverty, reinforcing the poverty mindset and perpetuating the cycle. Those were some heavy points, don't you think? So money is tied to self-reflection, mindset, and unhealed trauma. The key question, if I'm making sound decision, is why am I still finding myself in lack? To answer this question, I need us to keep the definition in our mind as we continue through this podcast episode. So we're going to start again with poverty mindset. The definition for poverty mindset is the belief system and thought patterns around scarcity. Example, fear of spending, hoarding, waiting for the right time, but never investing. The definition for poverty trauma is the emotional/psychological wounds from lived or inherited experience of lack. Example, growing up in survival mode, financial instability in the household, watching parents struggle. Let's break it down a bit further. Mindset is an internal narrative, which includes fear of taking financial risk, equating self-worth with money, believing abundance is for others, constantly thinking I can't afford this. Trauma is an emotional imprint which includes feeling unsafe even when you have enough, anxiety around bills or unexpected expenses, guilt when spending on yourself, overworking or self-sabotaging because stability feels foreign. How does trauma shape money habits? Number one, spending patterns. Trauma may push people into extremes, overspending, trying to soothe emotional pain, reward themselves, or avoid feeling deprived, or understanding/hoarding fear of losing it all at any moment. Even when there's money, trauma says it won't last. So I need to fill in the blanks with what you have said to yourself. For me, it won't last, so I need to keep working. I need to keep pushing. I need to keep fighting. I was in survival mode, and that is what my survival mode taught me to do. Seeing my family run out of money so easily also made me grow up feeling that I have to keep going because I never want to run out. Money is supposed to flow. It is supposed to come in and it's supposed to go out. So why was I in lack? I feel it's because I kept stopping the flow. I was blocking the flow. And if it doesn't flow, money doesn't come in. The second money habit is self-sabotage in earning. So avoiding opportunities, turning down promotions, or undercharging because worth feels tied to survival, not thriving. Trauma creates an invisible ceiling. You might believe subconsciously you don't deserve more. At this point in my life, I find myself thinking and believing that I deserve more. I want it all. I want everything, and I'm going to get everything. And that is the mindset I wake up with every morning. I want it all. Give everything to me. I deserve it. The third on the list, hyper-independence or financial codependence, which means trauma can push people in hyper-independence. I can't rely on anyone. I'll carry it all. Or financial codependency, which is relying on others to rescue them because money feels unsafe to handle alone. With that breakdown, what I struggle with is hyper-independence. And that is what is holding me back when it comes to financial abundance. When people have failed you countless times, starting from childhood, it is very difficult for you or myself to not become hyper-independent. When they need you, you show up. You come with your wallet too. But then when you need them, they are nowhere to be found. So yeah, I learned at a very young age, 6 years old, as a matter of fact, to depend on myself. Hyper-independence can also be a sign of trauma too. Number 4, anxiety around money management. Avoiding opening bills, skipping financial planning, or procrastinating on taxes. Trauma turns money tasks into triggers. Each statement, bill, or account balance becomes a reminder of past scarcity or instability. Number 5 on that list, guilt and shame around money. Feeling guilty about having more than family/friends is survival guilt. And we all experience that. Shame comes in when you are unable to help others financially, even as. Number 6, and the last one on this list, living in survival mode. Even when stable, trauma makes bare minimum survival feel safer than risk. Keeping yourself in constant hustle because peace feels too good to be true. This is another example of how I have been encouraging my lack. I had posed the question earlier as to what am I doing or what am I thinking that's causing me to be in lack. And I am being forced, and this is not the first time that I've been forced to get out of the survival mode and kind of learn how to let money flow in without me doing too much. The more I work, the more I spend. The more I work, the more taxes I have to pay. I see it, but why don't I believe it? I'll even tell people this. But for some apparent reason, I see it, but I just can't believe it. I still believe that I need to keep working, that I need to keep going, that I need to keep pushing, even to my detriment. It's not actually fixing my problems. I'm not more balanced. The downside of constantly working is not benefiting me at all. And now I find myself being pushed into this situation again where I don't have to do anything. I just let it flow. I let money attract to me. And I find that the more that I slow down, the more that I take a step back, the more that I don't put in too much work, is the more that I find that I'm more abundant. I feel more prosperous. I find money flows to me easily. It is so weird. I have been fighting the current for so long, this whole time, and did not know. It is too good to be true. It really is too good to be true. But now I'm embracing it and I'm accepting it and I'm just letting it flow because I deserve it. I deserve my soft girl era. I just want to put my foot up. I want to be balanced. I want to go do whatever I feel like doing and just relax. I'll just do my work and leave it in the past and just flow. Like air, just flow. Money flows to me easily and I accept it and I love it and I'm not complaining. Why should I stress? Why should I worry? I deserve this. I do. I deserve this. I work too damn hard and work too damn long. I deserve this. Come to me. Poverty mindset. It is not just thoughts. It is also learned behavior. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier that I've learned some behaviors as well. Some examples of these learned behaviors are handed down money stories, such as rich people are greedy, money is evil, and we're not the type of people who get ahead. The last part for that, we're not the type of people that get ahead, is something that my mother told me. I never understood it then, and I definitely don't understand it now because I don't see myself as limited. I don't see myself as not being a successful person. I see myself as being a successful person. So why wouldn't I be the type of person who gets ahead? And when family members are projecting that onto you and you ask them these questions, they don't really have a response. And I remembered kind of confronting my mother about this. And I asked her the question and her response was that she didn't do it. So there's no way that I can. They believe that you are not an individual person. You can't succeed where they have failed. Or for my mother, it was that her mother passed that down to her. So she turned around and passed it down to me. But she never questioned why that was said, where I am questioning why you're saying that shit to me. I remember becoming very upset about it because why are you speaking death into my life? Why would you say that I am not the type of person that can get ahead? That's the most ridiculous thing that you can say to me because you don't know my capabilities. You don't know my talents. So who made you the judge of what I'm capable of? Who made you the judge of where I can go and what I can and cannot do? So when I asked these questions and I said these statements, she had to step back and correct herself, but I can tell in her eyes that she genuinely believes this because that is what she was taught. She just didn't expect me to ask so many questions and she didn't expect me to be confrontational about it. Because if you're going to speak death into my life, you better back it up. You better back it up. These are the type of words that can curse you mentally, emotionally, and physically. And a lot of people don't understand how you speak to someone that is influenced by you, someone that looks up to you, can really hold them back in life. And how you speak to yourself, if you're repeating that shit back to yourself, that's even worse. When you repeat that shit back to yourself, you are choosing death. And we are all given choice. We all have choice in life. Nothing that we've chosen is not of our own doing. We made the choice. We are not victims. We made that choice. We made the choice to hold ourselves back. We made the choice to say, no, this opportunity isn't for me because I'm not capable. We tell ourselves this is how much that we can make and we're allowed to make. We made that choice. Another poverty mindset that is more than just thoughts is everyday language. By constantly saying, for example, I can't afford it, or that's too expensive. I do that all the time. But I find that when I say that to myself, it's because I don't find the item to be worth the money that is being asked for it, right? And we find ourselves doing that now, especially with the way the economy is going, and a lot of countries are somewhat struggling. An example is France, the United States of America. And Canada is also experiencing some economical, issues. And so when you're going to a store and you're looking at something that you want, but you don't need, you're going to tell yourself, I can't afford it. That's too expensive. Again, a bottle of perfume is now $200 or more, where it really wasn't that bad a year or two ago. Before COVID, it was much cheaper. So now we kind of have to look at these items and go, yeah, that's too expensive. It's not, for me, it's not that I'm saying to myself, I can't afford it. I could spend the money on it, but realistically, I have to decide to spend the money on something that I actually need and not want. Some people may need something and say that they can't afford it or that's too expensive, but it's a need and you got to take that risk and get it. So now if I see something that I want, I tell myself, I don't say to myself it's too expensive or I can't afford it. I would say that it's not worth the money, because it's not worth the money. I could be using this money somewhere else that it's needed, something that will decrease my stress, something that will allow me to not worry. But if it's something that I need, you won't hear me saying I can't afford it or it's too expensive. If I don't have enough money in that moment, I will come back another time. It will be included in my budget. You have to be careful not to train your mind into lack. Now, the third point that I would like to bring up that is not just a thought is identity and self-worth. It is the belief that you are only capable of a certain income level or lifestyle. Many of us tie money directly to who we are. If we don't have much, we see ourselves as less than. If we do, we see ourselves as worthy. That's dangerous, because our value as human being gets entangled with our bank account. Money is viewed as identity. If deep down we believe we're only worth struggle, we'll unconsciously keep ourselves in positions, jobs, or relationships that reflect that. Example, someone undercharge for their service because they don't believe people will pay more, or staying in a low-paying job because they don't feel they're qualified for better, even though they are. Sometimes our worth is shaped by family messaging or messages. We're not the type of people who get rich. Don't expect too much, just be grateful for what you have. These phrases shape identity, teaching us to play small. And I get it. Playing small means safety. It means security. It means you will never be able to get out of that box. The box that you placed yourself in that you feel is safe when it really isn't. You tell yourself, more money, more problems. But the problems only arise because you have no boundaries. And now that my boundaries are so strong, more money, no problem. When we look at the flip side, some people hustle endlessly not for abundance, but from trying to prove themselves valuable. The work never ends, but they're chasing validation, not peace. It's a cycle of proving. To heal self-worth around money, you need to detach identity from money. Your value doesn't increase or decrease with your paycheck. Recognizing when guilt or shame shows up, ask, am I making this decision because I don't feel worthy of more? Start small. Give yourself permission to receive without over-explaining or apologizing. I definitely quit that. I just don't care anymore. I don't care about your validation. I don't care about your opinion. Family, friends, acquaintances, coworkers, people I don't know, minding my business. I don't care. I don't have a problem telling you off. I am not against confrontation. If you are sticking your nose in business that you shouldn't be sticking your nose into, I promise you, you are going to meet somebody else. I am going to get everything that is mine. Once we understand how self-worth ties into money, it's easy to see how our mindset colors everything we do. Two people can have the same amount, but one's identity says this will never be enough, while the other's identity says this is just the beginning. That's where scarcity versus abundance comes in. And I am abundant. So let's get into scarcity versus abundance. I kept thinking about the difference between scarcity and abundance. And a story from the Bible came to mind. In Matthew 25:14-30, there's a parable of the talents. A master gives 3 servants money before leaving. He gave 5 talents to one servant, 2 talents to the other, and 1 to the last servant. So 3 in total. When he returned, the first 2 had doubled what they were given, but the last, with just 1 talent, buried it in the ground out of fear. He did not lose anything, but he didn't grow anything either. And instead of being rewarded, he was rebuked. Now, as I was writing this podcast episode, I had to go back and read it again because it popped into my head and I thought, oh, I need to talk about this. This is the Bible verse that I read a long time ago, and I can't remember it completely. So I ended up, writing the podcast episode, taking a break from writing and rereading it again. And let me tell you, when I don't know why people love reality shows, because if you just open the Bible and read it, it's the most entertaining thing you could ever read. The most entertaining thing. And I'm going to start reading from the part that had my jaw dropped in reading this verse. Because that one servant who buried their talent into the ground had the audacity to say this to their master. And I was like, boy, no slave would be stupid enough to say that. Like, none. You are choosing death. You are choosing death with this word. So I'm not going to read all of it, but I'm going to start with the master getting to the servant with the 1 talent. It says, then the one who had received the 1 talent also came forward, saying, Master, I knew that you were a harsh man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathered where you did not scatter seeds. So I am afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. I had to read that part twice because I kept thinking, he did not say that to his master. He did not. What do you mean? I knew that you were a harsh man, reaping where you did not sow. Boy, you're choosing death. You're choosing death. But I understood where the master was coming from, because the master said in his reply, you wicked and lazy slave. You knew, did you, that I reap where I do not sow and gather where I did not scatter? Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and on my return, I would have received what was my own with interest. And then he threw him out. That parable taught me a long time ago to never invest money without interest. So you will never catch me putting money in a savings account that does not have interest. But it also made me think that 2 out of the 3 people looked at what they had and saw possibilities. One looked at what they had or what he had and saw danger. That's scarcity. So what that one loser did, that was scarcity. And what the other 2 did, which was doubling what they were given, is considered abundance. The ones who multiply didn't focus on what they could lose, they focused on what they could build. But the one who buried his talents, that's what trauma and scarcity mindset does. It convinces us that playing it safe is the only option, even when it costs us our growth. I'm telling you, you want drama? Open a Bible. Open a Bible. Some of these stories, man, they just hit me. They hit me good. This scripture hit me differently as I was reflecting on poverty mindset versus poverty trauma. It's not just about money, it's about perspectives. 2 people looked at the same gift and saw possibilities. One looked at his gift and saw danger. That's how mindset works. Abundance sees growth, scarcity sees loss. And just like the servant who buried his talent, we can bury our opportunities when we let fear lead. When I think about how trauma shapes money, I realize it's not just about the dollar. It's about how past experiences and our beliefs around worth, safety, and possibility influences every choice we make. Mindset decides what we see, but trauma decides what we feel. And until we heal both, we'll always find ourselves back in survival mode, always waiting for the other shoe to drop instead of abundance. My hope is that this conversation helps you pause and reflect. A good question to ask yourself: am I making financial decisions from fear or from trust? And sometimes you just got to tell yourself, I deserve more. Why don't I deserve more? Ask yourself these questions. Don't be mean. Stop being mean to yourself. You deserve the world. Why shouldn't you? I know you need to be humble. I know that people say that, you just need to be grateful, and being grateful sometimes mean being humble to some people. But realistically, sometimes using gratitude as an excuse to stay small is not abundance. It's just scarcity. It is your trauma. So you have to be careful in associating humble and gratitude together. It's not the same. There's humble and then there's gratitude. You can be thankful for everything that you have given and still say, I deserve everything that I'm getting. I want more. You can still say that. That's abundance. Abundance doesn't have a limit. So if you put limits on abundance, you're choosing scarcity. Very food for thought. Food for thought. So that concludes this podcast episode. Thank you for supporting the Orchid Blooms podcast. Take this time to subscribe, follow. Don't forget to rate and leave a review on your podcast platform of your choice. Subscribe and follow our social media pages, Orchid Blooms YouTube channel, The Ambitious Obsession Network on Facebook, at The Ambitious Ops on Twitter, at The Ambitious Net on Instagram. Don't forget to share your favorite podcast episode with your family and your friends or acquaintances or coworkers. And I hope you have a splendid day.